Savage Dragon number 25 from January of 1996. I've got this little soundbox gimmick, so we're going to see how well that works. As promised in the last issue, looks like Mighty Man is going to be breaking Savage Dragon's bones in this issue. So let's get to it. But first up on the interior, it appears that Josh Ekhorn has finally achieved his lifelong goal to become Oscar Mayer Wiener. But it hasn't helped him pick up any chicks.
Whatever.
So let's move on to the story. And Gangland Part 2. Page 1 is just a recap of the previous events. You know, using Dragon's inner monologue here as a narrative exposition about the power struggle of the Vicious Circle and the Super Freaks. And, it's Savage Dragon's disappearing act down a chimney. And now Mighty Man gets to work and starts breaking Dragon's bones so they can heal properly. So that would be a pretty shitty day. Then we shift the narrative perspective to the cab driver from the previous issue, and he's just watching this medical procedure. I like that Howard, the cop, is eating popcorn for this brutality with a huge smile on his face. That's pretty great. And meanwhile, looks like She-Dragon has brought this drug-addicted sort of criminal to Johnny Redbeard. And she believes that this guy can help them take over the Vicious Circle with information that he has. And so this Redbeard guy, he has a superpower. He can give people superpowers, basically. And so he turns this guy into Bludgeon. And so Bludgeon was like a Freak Force villain. A lot of this stuff was in Freak Force. I have all these issues, the whole series, but I don't want to have to include those for the reread. So I'm just going with the information that we're getting from the Savage Dragon title. So anyway, Dragon is healing up here in a full body cast with Rapture at his bedside. And she catches him up on some of the events and offers to suck his dick. And the power struggle continues for the Vicious Circle. Brainy Ape argues that he should be the leader. Meanwhile, Powerhouse, the Chicken Man, says without irony that no one can take a talking ape seriously. Then we get Amanda Mills, the hostage from way back in the miniseries. She still wants to repay the dragon for saving her life. And so he then tries to pawn off this groupie onto Peter Clapton, who conveniently walks in the hospital room there. And so now she's convinced that Peter Clapton is the superhero star. And so she gives him the address of her apartment and tells him to drop into her skylight bedroom tonight. And then, so previously there was this dude, the Chicago Bull. He busted into this bar in issue 24. And he was apparently killed and cooked and eaten by the freaks in this bar. And they've mounted his head on the wall. Just crazy. So anyway, then a couple of cops bust in here. Looks like Howard and Chris Robinson. But they end up as hostages for the freaks. Then Alex comes to the hospital and she tells the dragon about all the stuff that's going on with the police and the gang war. And she inspires him to break out of his cast and to reveal his smiley face boxers there. Then we get the Stronghold Penitentiary, which is like a place that holds all the powerful freaks. Like Arkham Asylum, basically, for Savage Dragon. And it holds all of his villains, all these super villains, including Arachnid from the previous miniseries. And he grabs this guard and eats him, I imagine. Then Dragon's loaded with guns. He's ready to go hit the streets. Then Officer Mendoza tells him that, too bad, dude. You're going to have to do all this paperwork before you can go back out on the streets. finally, the last page here. Looks like Amanda Mills. Star's going to take her up on this skylight visit, but he bust his ass. Anyway, so this is a straight panel-for-panel swipe of Amazing Spider-Man that Eric Larson also drew. Pretty funny. You got the redhead looking like very familiar, like Mary Jane, calling out for Peter. All this should look pretty familiar. And the final page is just the ad here for a t-shirt they're trying to sell. So that appears to be it, right? Wrong. All right. So, yeah, we got a second comic in this thing. Written by Eric Larson, plotted by Keith Giffen, penciled by Jeff Matsuda. And so it starts off right where the last story left off, with Savage Dragon having to do the paperwork. Oh, I almost forgot. We got another Josh Eckhorn credit over here too. Josh Eckhorn, who was bitten by a radioactive spider and got diarrhea, but decided to fight crime anyway. Whatever. This sucks, says the dragon, doing all his paperwork when the Super Patriot comes in. And he says there's a new group of villains with gross powers called Body Function. And they're led by Cesspool, who was a villain you may remember from issue 4. He's like this gross, kind of pus-filled dude. And so he's got some help with him this time. The rest of the Body Functions. He's got Belcher, Nasal Ned, and Backfire. So this is just an excuse to have the dragon fight a dude who can flick boogers. And, another guy, Backfire, can blast the dragon with these explosive farts. And this massive burp just blows the roof off of this building. Some juvenile humor, sure. But it's fun. Not too much goes on. The good guys win. And they're just happy that there wasn't a guy on the team called the Whizzer, which makes me think that Larson was probably close to including a guy called the Whizzer. I mean, he's got a guy called Dung already. So, on to a truncated Fanatic's letter page. First, an assistant to Eric Larson, Garrett Chin. He's in charge of the reader poll from the last issue, where readers will decide the fate of Savage Dragon. Will Dragon say yes and agree to marry Rapture? We will find out in issue 27. In the meantime, Garrett wishes his girlfriend, Emily, a happy Valentine's Day, which is coming up. And then Eric has a piece here about explaining this issue was tough to finish on account of bad weather, because the blizzard of 96 had hit the East Coast. And so the inker of the backup, Terry Austin, as well as the letterer, they were snowed in and couldn't get their work out. And so the colorist and the printers were like rushed to get everything done in time. So I never would have guessed that this was a rush job, because it looks pretty great. So then this letter brings up an interesting point. So the character I referenced earlier, that Johnny Redbeard, is actually Chelsea Nirvana, a Freak Force character. And I don't think that's actually been revealed in this comic. So Larson says he's going to try and keep everybody up to speed, even if they haven't read the Freak Force series. So that's how I'm going to handle it. Just 2 pages of the letter is nothing else really that got stuck out to me. But there was a variant cover for this issue. And so they're including the variant cover on the inside back cover here, which is nice. I don't think he says there's no difference between the issues. It's just the cover, which is cool. Then on the back page, we got another page talking about this contest. Not a contest, the goddamn reader poll. Jesus Christ. So it's up to you. Cut along the dotted line. Destroy the comic. Go buy another one. Repeat. 95% off the value of this comic. All right, so that will do it. Next up is issue 26.